Welcome to the Volpe Report podcast, the state's premier public affairs show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians. I'm your host, Chuck Volpe. Join us now as we speak to this week's guest.
The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is brought to you by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
We welcome a special guest to this week's show, my good friend and our United States Senator, Dave McCormick. He is here, fresh off the Washington Beltway and I-95, to come into Fox Studios to discuss the reopening of the government and some of the behind-the-scenes intrigue on the 8 Democratic senators who courageously defied their party and voted with the Republicans to reopen the government. I had the pleasure of watching the event live Sunday night and watching as the events took place on the motion for cloture, which effectively reopened the government. A motion for cloture in the United States Senate ends the filibuster and ends debate, which allows it to go for a vote. And that's exactly what happened. And of course, that opened up our government. So with that having been said, it's of course an interesting conversation with him as he was in that room when the deals were getting done to get this thing open. And it'll be also good to hear his take on it. Having said that, a big part of this show will be discuss the issue that caused this long suffering in the wilderness of the American people, 45 days to be exact. And that elephant in the room is our broken healthcare system. So that'll be a big part of our discussion today. The fact is it has become unaffordable for the overwhelming majority of working families. And the senator understands that that has to get fixed, not at gunpoint, as the Democrats tried to do, but done with good faith negotiations by both parties and good people on both sides fixing a broken system.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial. The area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Senator, welcome to the Volpe Report.
Hey, good to be with you, Chuck.
My pleasure. Let me say that we are very, very fortunate to have you here today being Wednesday, and this show will air on Sunday. So it's significant in that as we speak, 2 of your colleagues in the House and my good friends, actually 3 in this whole media market, Ryan McKenzie, Dan Muser, and Rob Bresnahan, are doing their patriotic duty of voting in the House to open up government and get the money to all these people that the Democrats made suffer. I've never seen it in my lifetime. It was actually the longest shutdown in history,
yeah.
So I'm factually correct. But you sit here having just literally in the last day or so done your patriotic duty in the Senate. So just walk us through that. You were literally in that room, part of history, casting a vote to open government and for the motion for cloture. So take us in there and talk to.
Yeah, well, as we speak, there's a vote happening in the House. I hope it passes. Right. If it passes, we'll open up the government. And 3 great Pennsylvanians, Rob Bresnahan, Dan Muser, and Ryan McKenzie. Sure. Those 3, we're lucky to have them representing all of us. But honestly, I'm a business guy. I look at this and it seems like absolute madness to me. 45 days where the government was shut down. The government shutdown was used as blackmail to try to move forward on a set of political objectives by the Democrats, particularly this extension of subsidies that were put in place during COVID on Obamacare. We can come back to that. This is unprecedented. What typically happens is if you want to extend the funding of the government, you have a clean continuing resolution. Republicans have supported that under Biden. This is very uncommon for this to happen. And it was essentially an attempt by the Democrats to show resistance to President Trump and get some of their political objectives in place. And it was just a terrible mistake because it did real damage on our country. 2 million Pennsylvanians on SNAP. 2 million. These are people that are dependent
to eat.
On SNAP to eat, right? We're taking food out of their mouths.
Children went to bed hungry.
Exactly. 100,000 federal workers in Pennsylvania, most of whom were furloughed. People on my team literally had to go get loans from the credit union because they're young kids who don't have the money to miss a paycheck or two, our military, our border patrol. And then, of course, our air traffic controllers are working around the clock in these incredible stressful jobs, not being paid, and it's starting to disrupt air travel. All of this pain inflicted on the American people for just a political this objective. So I think it's disgraceful. I've voted 15 times to open up the government. Right. I've voted for legislation never to let the government shut down again. I think it's a ridiculous ploy. My fellow Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman and I both voted 15 times to open the government. He's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. If the roles were reversed and the Democrats were in the majority, I would also say never close down the government. So this is
point. Let me just interject. During the presidency of Joe Biden, at the time the Democrats had the House, the Senate, before you got there, and the presidency, 13 times continuing resolutions were put together by the Democrats. They were in the majority. And 13 times the Republicans supported it and opened up the government.
Right.
For the record.
It's an absolute disgrace. So there you have it. And you wonder why people have lost faith in their elected officials. And I mean, for your listeners, your viewers, I just want to apologize. I want to apologize that they were put through this mess for 45 days. Now we can get back to the business of governing, implementing the agenda that we ran on and then promised to do, which is closing the border, stopping the flow of fentanyl, opening up our great Pennsylvania economy to energy, making things more affordable. We still have more work to do on that.
Of course.
Making healthcare costs more affordable. All those things are very much part of the agenda. What you can't do is hold the government hostage to try to get your political objectives in place.
It makes me wonder about the Democrats, vast majority of Democrats in the Senate. Not the seven plus one independent, but to me it's 8. There's the independent caucuses with the Democrats, so that to me is a Democrat. Those 8, including Senator Fetterman in Pennsylvania, that took the courage to do what they did. But the flip side of that coin, what the other Democratic senators, the vast majority of them, because if we say 8, less they're 47, that means 39 of them effectively, or actually 40, that voted. The 40 that voted against the motion for cloture. What would they have been willing to do to the American people to achieve their ends? You have people that were literally, you had old folks and seniors, you had young mothers, single mothers with children that depend on SNAP benefits. Literally, I saw videos of around mothers around the country crying on the videos about they can't feed their families, their children are going to bed hungry. These are the people that you were holding hostage. These are the people who you were inflicting pain to get a policy point discovered, which if they were doing their job and everybody had some civility, you could work out together.
Right.
So it begs the question, how far would they have been willing to go?
It's sort of mind-boggling. I think what happened is the Democrats ran themselves into a cul-de-sac. The one thing in the military we always learn, don't drive into a cul-de-sac because you're stuck. And they're stuck because of an extreme element in the Democratic Party that's gaining ground. It's gaining so much ground that 40 Democrats wouldn't vote to open up the government. And
are condemning the ones that did.
Exactly. And the best example of that, and I do agree with you that there was a lot of courage to do that because they're coming under a lot of heat. Senator Fetterman's coming under a lot of heat. Most of those Democrats that voted to open up the government aren't ever running again. Okay. And that's a sad commentary on the party. But if you want to know the party, look at what just happened in New York. You have a man who was just elected to be mayor of the largest city, one of the great cities of the world, that is an avowed socialist, who is saying that we should essentially make public the grocery stores and the buses will free to travel. This is socialist policies that have been tried again and again through history, and they've ended up in the dustbin of history.
Failed.
We have a man who's explicitly anti-Semitic, who has associated himself with terrorists that were involved in 9/11. And this man won decisively the mayoral race in New York. And the reason that's so important, because New York's radically different than Northeast Pennsylvania, but the Democratic Party is moving in that direction. And that move to the left and those kinds of policies is really bad news for our country. And the reason it's bad news is this, my Republican friends listening to this may not agree. I think it's healthy for us to have a healthy Democratic Party, right? We want someone in the opposite side we can have a conflict of ideas. We believe as conservatives, our ideas are better. We think it's better to have a secure border. We think it's better to have law and order in our cities. We think it's better to have capitalism be the driving force. We think it's better to have energy dominance. That's exactly opposite of what the Democratic Party is now leaning into. And I think it's bad news for the country. And the best thing Republicans can do, in my opinion, is deliver on our promises. Ensure opportunity for everyone. Ensure the working families of Pennsylvania benefit from these great policies. And we're in the process of doing that. The first 9 months have been remarkable in terms of change. The amount of change has happened, consistent with the promises we made. But we got to keep focused on it. We got to keep focused on affordability. We got to make sure working families are better off tomorrow than they were today, and better off next year than they were this year.
Right. Well, as we talked about, Dave, I think we have to admit that despite the best efforts of the president and you guys in the Senate and House, we have a ways to go yet with affordability. It's not there yet, although all the economic indicators are great. The stock market is doing really well. Wages are going up. Joblessness is down. I mean, every other economic indicator. And as we talked about, those were the same arguments the Democrats were making last year. Oh, look the market's doing good. The economy really is about to just have an explosion. And of course, it never happened, and people voted that way. So as we head into midterms, is your forecast that all of the policies that you guys have put in effect, what the big, beautiful bill has done and is doing, that will start to catch up? Because otherwise, you're going to beat you over the head with that at the midterms. Yeah,
well, there's sort of two big things happening. There's the kinds of things that are going to make Pennsylvania and the country more vibrant and create more opportunity. That's unleashing energy. That's deregulation.
Your innovation energy
the
summit.
Innovation summit, incredible, right? We're going to create tens of thousands.
$92 billion.
Right. Just quickly on that for a second, Chuck. Just in the last 9 months, 5 announcements that I just want to highlight for your viewers. Number one, Nippon, U.S. Steel, right? Ensured steel, next generation steel making in the Mon Valley, thousands of jobs, protected and more gain. The announcement of the Amazon announcement here in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Huge.
Right? $20 billion, thousands of jobs, 2 big campuses in Pennsylvania. The Energy Summit, $40 billion of data centers, $50 billion of energy infrastructure. The Hanwha announcement, the South Koreans bought the Philadelphia shipyard. They announced $5 billion of new investment, 5,000 new jobs. Wow. And last week, when the president was in Japan announced they're gonna buy $100 billion of nuclear reactors from Westinghouse, Western Pennsylvania. Those 5 things in any 1 year would have been remarkable. All in 1 year is
in one term.
One term, right?
Would have been remarkable.
9 months. Now, none of those have resulted in huge increase in jobs yet. They're just announced.
They're coming.
Right?
They're coming.
And the second thing is, if you're walking down the aisle and you're buying eggs and milk and bread and meat, some have gone down, eggs are down.
Yeah.
Meat's up.
Yeah.
And overall, inflation, the way people should think about that is how much have prices gone up in the last year? Prices have gone up over the last year about the same as they did the year before.
All right. Under 3.
Under 3. It's about a little less than 3%. So compared to President Biden in the middle of his term,
9%.
9% a year. So the rate that prices are going up is slowing. It's almost where we need it to be. The problem is they're not going down. And wages aren't going up faster than prices.
Right.
So if you're somebody who's living on a fixed income, if you're living on your Social Security check, and you're going to the grocery store, you still feel it.
No doubt.
Gas prices, you still feel it. So we need to do more on those topics, and we need to do more to implement the president's agenda faster, and particularly around energy, because gas prices and fuel prices affect everything. You can bring down those prices, it affects all
goods coming to market.
That's right.
That's right there is the add-on.
And the one thing I can say with 100% confidence is, having been with the president a couple times over the last week, 10 days, he talks about it every time. Right. He's very focused on affordability. The Congress is very focused on affordability. I don't think any of us are saying, hey, we're where we need to be.
60% of Americans, working class Americans, Dave, live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have money at the end of the month for $1,000 emergency And so their solution was to inflict all of this pain. And my feeling is, and I'm gathering from what you're saying, is it's a very hopeful message and a positive one. You're saying the cavalry's coming,
yeah,
and they're right over the hill, and they're coming. And,
well, it's coming in two ways. Three ways. It's coming in those jobs I talked about, but it's coming in efforts that should bring down prices.
Right.
But the big, beautiful bill had a number of things that were focused on working families. A child care tax credit. If you have two parents working,
of course,
right, you get that child care tax credit. That may save you $1,000, $2,000 a year. Child tax credit. That also reduces your tax burden. So it's like putting money in your pocket. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security under a certain level of income. All of those things were designed to help the families that you're talking about that are living paycheck to paycheck. Interest rates coming down.
Yes.
That made your car payment cheaper. So if you think holistically about what it's like to be a working family, there's lots of things that are coming to help make your life easier. But
they haven't just hit. Well, for example, some of those tax things.
They haven't hit yet.
This tax day, April of 2026, they'll hit.
That's exactly right.
And all of the other things. So,
but I don't want to be what you said the other side did. I don't want to not lean into the problem, which is prices still need to come down more.
I
agree.
100%. With that, Senator, we'll take a break. We go to break. We're here today with United States Senator and good friend, Dave McCormick. I'm unabashed about my support. We need more people like him in government. So I am thrilled he makes the time to come in studio. Sometimes we get him by Zoom, which is just a requirement of the busy life of a senator. But we're happy to have him here today. And especially as we head into this holiday season, now that the government's back open, a very hopeful, and this Thanksgiving, I would suggest, Senator, will be an extra thankful one now that families are getting paid, and in our military that are protecting us overseas are getting paid, and all of the above. So it's good to have because for a bunch of shows, so you weren't involved in them because you were busy doing your job in the Senate, where the holdup was. I've had a number of shows about the shutdown week after week, thinking it was going to be ending, and it didn't. Right. So now it's over, folks. We think. So we'll be right back after this message.
There are more places you can see the Volpe Report. Watch every Sunday morning at 10:30 on Fox 56 or watch on YouTube at the Volpe Report. More ways to watch. Still the same premier political talk show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians.
We're back with today's special guest, Pennsylvania's United States Senator Dave McCormick. Senator, back to what we didn't talk about earlier, as we were all, I'm sure, thrilled and happy, and that comes across on camera, that this shutdown and the misery the Democrats inflicted is coming to an end. The elephant in the room is still, they stake their claim on the Affordable Care Act, subsidies, tax credits, and the like. And the issue is, if what they're saying is even remotely true, and it usually isn't, but I'm going to give them a broad swath on that. Apparently, their issue is that healthcare costs are going to go up significantly. And starting in January 1st, when people get their bills, it's going to go up. If you listen to Bernie Sanders, like it's the end of the world. So that's something that I know in our conversations, and I think the Republican Party and the president have signaled they're not going to do it at gunpoint.
Yeah.
While you hold people hostage, but it has to be addressed. So what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, that was always the message, which is we're willing to talk about this and negotiate in good faith, but we're not going to do it with the government held hostage. I mean, I think to be honest with this, you have to start with the following. Obamacare, which was put in place 15 years ago, was an abysmal failure. The goal, I remember it like it was yesterday, the goal was to reduce costs, increase quality, increase access. Costs are skyrocketing out of control. People still don't have access, and the quality is not improved as a consequence of this legislation. So the cost of healthcare are going up, where we spend more on healthcare than any other country in the world, and we aren't getting the outcomes and the quality we need. So that's the starting point. Now, when you think about that, what the Democrats are saying is that these Obamacare subsidies that were put in place during COVID should be extended. I'm worried about this too. I'm worried about the premiums going up on working families. So I do think we need to do something on it. We probably need to do something bigger on Obamacare. But in this near term, we need to do something on it. But we need to do it in a thoughtful way. And what I'm worried about are people that really are living paycheck to paycheck. And what I'm not worried about are the people that are getting subsidies that have much higher income, which are benefited from the COVID extensions. It was very interesting. Jean Shaheen, who is a senator from New Hampshire, she's retiring. She was one of the eight that voted. And she said about extending the healthcare subsidy, she said, I think it's appropriate that we think about reforming because 94% of the people that receive these benefits earn under $200,000. 94% of all Americans earn under $200,000, $200,000 or less. And some of those benefits go to people that make more than $200,000. It's probably not appropriate. We ought to probably look at that. And there's a lot of fraud. Right. We should probably look at eliminating the fraud. So the kinds of reforms that we're talking about as Republicans are what I think any common sense person would think about. We got to deal with the bigger problem with healthcare. We don't want to see premiums spike for people that really need the help, that are living paycheck to paycheck. But we also don't want to give a blanket check for people that are higher incomes or to allow continued fraud in the system when there appears to be a lot of it. Right. So that's what I think the negotiation will be about. We've got to address the longer term problem, as you and I talked about. This is one of the things when people look at their expenses every month and every year that are spiraling out of control. And we need to reform healthcare to be able to deal with it and provide access to people who need healthcare.
Well, let me, you said a lot of important things there, and let me talk about a couple things. One of the things is talk about being in a bad catch-22 between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, we have these spiraling out of control costs on the one hand. On the other hand, we have a crisis with a 37 or so and counting $1 trillion deficit that keeps going up and up. We have a budget situation that we keep adding to the deficit. We're $1 trillion, away from being a year away from a balanced budget. The answer cannot be, and all Americans can understand this, just keep pouring more money into this endless money pit, which is right. The Affordable Care Act, while everything keeps going up. At some point, we have to get this under control. We can't even talk about the $37 trillion deficit because we have trillions going up and up and up on the Unaffordable Care Act. Dan Muser named it, right. By the way.
Good name.
He did a good name. So I think Americans understand we just can't keep doing. For example, really quickly, there were 2 regulations that were promulgated during the Biden administration. And effectively, one of the things they did, again, in the Affordable Care Act, they made what used to be Medicaid for health, of course, care. They added food, like transportation, lodging. These were never things that were supposed to be done. And the second regulation allowed for a reimbursement to the states because what was happening is they were paying effectively more money, charging more money, and then the state would get reimbursement. They'd send the bill to the federal government. And when people say, well, what about illegal aliens? And the Democrats say, rightly, under federal law, they cannot qualify, they can't get Medicaid. They're not doing it that way. They're backdooring it through blue states, right. The sanctuary cities and in blue states that have all these illegal migrants. They're signing them up, but it's done in a way, it's a number on an account sheet. You don't see it, but that's part of the money that the federal government, we taxpayers are reimbursing. So effectively, they are battling for illegal migrants to get health care. Those are the things that I think all Americans understand. We have to address. We have to address it.
We have to address it. And we took a small step in the big, beautiful bill on Medicaid. And it's been, it's come under all this attack from the Democrats. And, this was my sort of introduction to Washington. I really did the research on this. Here are the numbers, which are remarkable. Medicaid has gone up by $250 billion a year over the last 5 years. So
we're over $1 trillion.
Right. Well, so it's now $250 billion more than it was 5 years ago.
Right.
So it's grown dramatically. It's almost double digit. Right. The reforms we put in place were to essentially require people to work who were work eligible, not people with disabilities, not people with dependents, but work eligible, particularly men who were eligible to work, would have to work to receive Medicaid benefits. That was one of the modest reforms. I looked at these reforms inside and out, and what's going to happen in Pennsylvania and most of the country is the rate of growth is going to go from about 6% a year, which is twice what inflation is, to 3% a year. Right. So it's still, the Medicaid budget's still going to grow in Pennsylvania by about 3%, with the number of recipients staying the same. Right. So we're not cutting Medicaid. Right. We're requiring people to work. Right. who are eligible to work and don't have special challenges. So you and I mean, I bet if we did an experiment, I walked out on the street here and talked to people in Scranton or Wilkes-Barre or Bloomsburg, where I grew up, and said, what do you think? I think they say, listen, people need to work. If they're eligible to work, they need to work.
Of course.
And these are the basic common sense things. So we're not going to be able to deal with that fiscal crisis, which I agree with, that debt spiraling out of control, unless we're willing to make the changes necessary to balance our budget. And it's just like you and I have to do in our households. The people in Washington have sort of lost sight of that. And so we got a lot of work to do on this. We got to make healthcare more affordable. We've got to get back to the goals Obamacare had but didn't fulfill: affordability, access, quality.
Right.
And we got a lot of work to do.
No question, Senator. Before we leave, I know you have a subject you want to talk about something I was unaware of, but suicide rates among our veterans, and that's a big issue for you. So
yeah, let me finish with that.
Yes.
Let's see, we're the day after Veterans Day.
Yes.
Pennsylvania has the fourth largest veterans population in the country, 700,000 veterans, 500,000 of them wartime veterans. They have done so much for the country. We owe them a debt of gratitude. I feel this very personally as a veteran myself. And today, since 2001, we have had, on average, 22 veterans a day kill themselves. The number's about 19 now. That's 140,000 veterans over that 25 years. It's an absolute disgrace. It's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of imagination. It's a failure of solving the problem. And only half of those that killed themselves even had any form of counseling or support along the way. So many of them died in silence, not even the system not even knowing that they had a problem. So this is something we need to bring focus on. I've introduced two pieces of legislation, bipartisan legislation, that would focus on brain innovation therapy centers in the VA system.
Wow. And
also a zero suicide initiative that would try to bring the Army's leadership and the military's leadership, not just the Army, all the services, to bear on this. That's still not going to be enough. We need to experiment with psychedelics and all sorts of other things to try to help people deal with brain injuries, with PTSD. There's so much more to be done. You learn a lot about a country by the way it treats those who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. We're failing in this regard, and I'm going to try to be a strong voice for that, for all veterans, but particularly those in Pennsylvania.
Well, you would think of all the United States senators, I don't know how many are West Point graduates, but you being one, I'm sure they'll be proud of you.
I'm the ninth in America's history.
Only 9.
In America's history,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be proud of you at the point, I'm sure.
I'm proud to be here.
Senator,
thank
always
you,
great to have.
Nice to see you.
Yep. Again, we're here today with our United States Senator. We had the pleasure of having him actually in studio as he spends today in Northeast and Central Pennsylvania, and talking about the issues and, of course, the timeliness of his being here, since we literally are waiting for word from his colleagues in the House of Representatives in Congress to tell us that the government is open. So good times, good tidings are in front of us, thankfully. We'll be back next week with, actually, next week's show will be some of the folks that are in Washington doing their job right now. United States Congressman Rob Bresnahan and Dan Muser will be making the trek back from Washington with an open government, and they'll be in studio, but they'll be next Sunday, the following Sunday show. So we look forward to that as well. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Volpe Report podcast. Be sure to visit our YouTube and Facebook pages for upcoming episodes. You can catch up on the Volpe Report podcast on your favorite podcast provider.